Hi guys, I'm here to talk to you about exigence again, Exigence, and you guys remember we've talked about it in class a few times about how it's our new word for purpose this semester, and I'll define it for you again. I keep repeating it in class so that you guys hear me talking about it enough so that when I mention it, you know what it is. Because we're going to be using it all semester. But remember, it's the writer's call to write. We defined purpose last semester as the reason that somebody writes. So, of course, your exigence is a little bit complicated this semester because here I am telling you you have to write all these essays, but I'm making you choose all of these things. So, this is quite difficult this semester and much different than the way we handled writing papers last semester. And I'm very glad to give you this um, challenge because it's a lesson in being able to take responsibility for your learning and your writing in a way that maybe you haven't been asked to do in the past. So I'm looking at some passages from Stephen King's Why We Crave Horror Movies. It's on page 561 of your essay, of your textbook, excuse me. And I'll try to show you where in the textbook, which paragraph it's in as well, but you'll notice in my notes that I have used MLA format, and so I'm sort of informally reviewing in-text citations with you, and so this is something I probably won't go over in class, but I'll start sharing those resources with you that we used last semester as well. But you guys see some examples in the textbook right now. Excuse me, in the screen right now. Talking about the textbook, talking about what I typed on the screen, and that's not going so well. All right, so I'm here to talk to you about exigence. Just need to give you some introductory information. I asked you guys before you left class yesterday on the 14th to look at the essay you read. You remember there were 4 essays that I listed, and to find some passages where you think exigence is showing up. In other words, where has the author shown his call to write? In other words, what is his passion for the topic and how does it manifest itself? How does it show up in the writing? And so I wanted to show a few examples, and then I'll probably list some other ways that it can show up in the writing as well. So you can see how it works in your own. So the first passage you see is from the very beginning of the essay on 561. It's the very first line. I think that we're all mentally ill. Those of us outside the asylums only hide it a little better, and maybe not all that much better after all. So, couple of reasons why I identify this passage as exigence, and I'm going to make my notes as I talk, is that it's in first person. I know it's his King's voice. I can identify that obviously because it's in first person, but I also hear him. I've read some of his stuff. I've heard him interviewed, and so I know that this is the way he would sound. So there's a very conversational tone, and that goes along with this being his voice, and you guys identified voice as something you think makes writing strong. And so one way to get at exigence is to make sure that you capture your voice in the piece of writing. So I'm going to type here, don't make your writing sound like you are a student. And maybe that's hard to do because, when we learn to write in school, that's the context in which we are writing, and we make this assumption, or we're told explicitly by a teacher, hey, this is the way I want you to sound. And academic writing is sort of guilty of that sometimes stuff sounds really, really stuffy and really arrogant and really pedantic and lots of other things we can associate with academic writing. Of course, sometimes academic writing makes people sound really smart, educated, intelligent. So I think in your writing this semester, you should be trying to strike a balance between showing us that you know how to sound intelligent, but also letting your own voice come through your writing. And so that's one way that exigence, thinking about exigence helps you to improve your writing. So it's the writer's passion. But remember, we've talked about in class how there's also a sense that the writer wants some kind of change. And going through the effort of writing something, a topic that you care about, I think everyone would hope that there would be some kind of change in the end. And remember, we've talked about how change can be internal. So this could be inside you. If you're writing more of a reflective piece, I'm thinking about Lauren's letter to her mother. So this was kind of a reflective piece to herself, the draft that we read. So you can definitely write something like that in this class, but it would have to, through exigence, show us the way that you're trying to come to some point of change, right? So here are some examples where I think that happens in Kings. The next passage is a couple of different ones, and these are all on page 562. I've picked some from paragraphs 2 through 5, just different ones. But here's the thing I want to point out. Still first person, but first person plural. And the first person in the first note was first person singular. So I love this shift in King's writing because he's getting at this idea of that we shouldn't necessarily think of horror movies as a negative. No, in fact, because he's saying I and you, and that becomes we, first person plural, it's including the writers, including anyone reading it. He's saying there's hope for us to see this in a more positive light. So there's definitely, so I'm going to put that note here, through using we, the writer gets at the hope that watching horror movies becomes a positive, and I would even say like a cathartic thing, that we learn about who we are as people, etc. And then the last example that I have on here, I didn't have room to type out the whole thing, but it's the first two sentences in paragraph 12, so I've just kind of typed the first couple of words. The mythic horror movie, like the sick joke, has a dirty job to do. It deliberately appeals to all that is worst in us. So we've talked about use of first person, we've singular, we've talked about first person plural, we've talked about conversational tone, we've talked about, which is like saying, hey, put your voice in there. We've talked about this message of hope that horror movies are becoming something else, not just, you know, an entertainment, kind of entertainment we use. And so here we have the author, I'm going to put author makes a direct statement. And we could even say that this is argumentative in a lot of ways, that he's taking a position that this is the role that horror movies have in our culture. And that we don't have to like it and we don't have to feel comfortable about it, but really it's something that's necessary. So he's trying to help us to see that more hopeful vision of it, even though he's using terms that remind us of, you know, how it's down there in the dark basement, and so it makes us uncomfortable sometimes. So this direct statement is also a part of exigence, and I would say that that's probably the closest to, you know, thesis statement. We haven't talked about thesis statement all this semester because we don't need to, but that really gives us a sense of what his passion for the topic is. He's willing to make this really strong claim. So there are several other kinds of things we can find in the text where the writer is expressing exigence, but I think these three examples are good for now. We've talked about several different things. And so what I need you guys to do is to set up in your journal, just like you see on my screen, that dialectical notebook. We've been doing it here and there this semester. I think this might be our third or fourth one from the semester. So you guys see I have my two columns. I just don't have a line down the middle. So I want you guys to find at least 3 examples of exigence that you see happening in the essay you read for Tuesday, those 4 that are listed under the homework assignment for Tuesday the 14th. You guys can go back and look at the page numbers there. And then you see I have not only my example passages, but I also have the notes on the right hand side to see, to show what I'm observing by way of exigence. And so I'll be looking for that. It will be due either Thursday in class in your journal, or I will check for them also Tuesday since I got this video posted a little bit late. All right, so I will see you guys in class tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a good night, and definitely be reading those drafts for workshop tomorrow. Talk to you later.